Of course, the day is not done. We have another fabulous guest speaker coming up. Now, this man here, well, he's about to do what he does. Like, every time I see him, well, most times when I see him around the center, he's always sharing or teaching me something. Like, he might come up to me and be like, man, did you know that Ernest Holmes was friends with, like, Martin Luther King's grandfather? Except it would always be truth. He would only share truth. And so now, he's going to come up and share some of that truth with us about Father. Michael Brundy.
I've been given permission by Dottie, who manages our sermon, to make our service, to make sure everything is timely, to make sure that everything stays in time, and I'm going to take advantage of that and ask Gary, come on up and do me one verse, Gary, because Gary just sings so well, and nobody's crazy enough to speak after the show. I think you all would agree that hearing one verse of Gary would surely be a great opening for me. Come on, Gary.
One verse of anything?
Anything you got.
If I could be a boy again, I'd throw my caution to the wind and be the man I might have been. If I could be a boy again. This is now and that was then. And tell me, how do I begin to find out what I thought I'd lost was never really missing? If I could be a boy again, I'd throw my caution to the wind, be the man I might have been. If I could be a boy again. Oh, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Oh, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can be a boy again.
That was definitely unplanned, but definitely appreciate that. If you've been paying close attention, you'll notice that we had Jeff talking about science of mind and how that relates to being a father, particularly being a biological father. We had Nashar, who gave us an example of fathers being mentors and stepfathers and all types of fathers that can be important to us. And I want to follow up on that idea. I'm not a biological father, but I have a biological father. My biological father, in my opinion, was a great father. And he had stepdaughters, so I got a chance to watch my father be a stepfather. Now, I'm a stepfather, so now I've got a little bit more experience about being a stepfather, and I understand a little bit more about being a father. But one thing that I understand, too, is that all of us have the capability, and all of us have what's needed to be fathers. Let me share a quote with you. That's one of my favorite quotes. It says, "You, like all others, are seeking the joy of living. You wish to be needed, to be loved, to be included in the great drama of life. This urge is in every individual, and it's in everything." That's a quote by Ernest Holmes, and it comes from the book, This Thing Called You. I think it describes most all of us. All of us have that urge to be needed, that urge to give to others. But here's an even more special quote for Father's Day. Fathers are defined by how they love, not how they multiply or how they breed. Just because you can make a baby does not necessarily make you a father. There's some more things that have to go into that. Now, making a baby is pretty cool. They tell me I've never been one of those. I just was practicing that safe sex. It didn't happen for me. But I did get a chance to become a stepfather, and I can tell you one difference between being a biological father and being a stepfather. Biological fathers, a lot of times that just sort of springs up on you. Say, oh, I'm pregnant, oh, we're going to have a child. Or sometimes you may have planned and you may have cleaned up the rooms and did all those kinds of things. But for a stepfather chooses to be that stepfather. That stepfather chooses, knowing that they'll have to be with that child from then until eternity. That stepfather chooses to be there and be there for that child. I think we all need someone like that. We all need a person like that. When I was looking up stepfathers, I was amazed to find out all the people who have stepfathers. Just look at that list. I won't go through all of them, but it's just amazing to me, the different people. You look at the side on the right, you'll probably recognize those names. But Martina, Jeff Gordon, John Singleton, Shaq, all of them great stepfathers. How about that? Booker T. Washington, Gerald Ford, Betty Ford, Pearl Bailey, all of those people with stepfathers. Need more? Look at that. Nancy Reagan, Irma Bonner, Jackie Kennedy Onassis, all became who they were as a result of the help of stepfathers. Now, there's one real famous stepfather that doesn't get a lot of play too much. You know, his wife gets more play than he gets. His son gets a whole lot of play, but he doesn't get a lot of play. But I bet some of you know who I'm talking about, because I can see Jackie over there doing it, because I know she knows who I'm talking about. The most famous stepfather of all happened to have the same name as my father, and his name was Joseph. And he was the stepfather of Jesus. Now, I'm not sure what you guys may or may not believe, which gospel you may or may not read, but most of us have heard the story that Jesus was the Son of God and was born of the Virgin Mary. But even God understood that Jesus would need an earthly father, would need somebody on earth to guide, to offer discipline, direction, to help him with his destiny. And I would submit to you that Jesus probably wouldn't have been Jesus without a stepfather. Probably wouldn't have did all those things that he did without a stepfather. I've got an Uncle John, who is deep into everybody's religion. And Uncle John will debate you about anything in the Bible, anything that they talk about in Sunday school. And his recent debate is, Michael, do you know what happened to Jesus from age 12 to age 30? Nobody knows. Do you know what happens? And he points to a certain scripture and says, oh, that's what he's at. Well, I didn't want to tell Uncle John my opinion, because I've read all kinds of books and heard all kinds of stories. And some folks say Jesus was off in the Far East in those years, learning Buddhism and Hinduism and stuff. Some folks say that, Jesus was having to learn how to get those powers under control, because if you got some of Jesus' powers, you could be a bad little kid. So somebody had to be around there to offer that kind of. So I would submit to you that what was going on with Jesus from age 12 to age 30 was Jesus was hanging out with Joseph. He was hanging out with his dad. He was getting that discipline, that direction that was going to determine the destiny of his life. I mean, it was his stepfather, his dad, who took him from Nazareth to Egypt to save him when they were killing all the boys. It was his dad who was working that had to go to Bethlehem in the first place to pay taxes. It was his dad who taught him a trade, who taught him carpentry, which is what he was doing all those lives. The most important stepfather that I can think of happened to be the stepfather of Jesus. Now, if it was good enough for Jesus, I'd say it's probably good enough for all of us too. But I also would submit to you that you don't have to necessarily be a male to be a father figure, to be a stepfather, a godfather for someone in your life. Anybody who offers that kind of direction, anybody who offers that kind of discipline, anybody who can provide unconditional love and support and protection for a child, to me, is a father and a father figure. And I think we all need those kind of people in our lives. Now, I was real lucky in my life. I got great parents. Matter of fact, I got two mothers because God knew I would need some extra help and gave me two. The real reason probably was because my dad was a great dad and maybe not that great of a husband. But either way, somewhere along the line I learned that it's important that we have male and females in our lives. We need to have that diversity of opinion, those different things to learn. And I heard that from age 1 to 5, it's important to have mothers in our lives, because that's what we call lap time. And you need some lap time when mother loves you and holds you tight and you can't do anything wrong and everything is just great. But then from 5 to 10, they call that slap time. That's daddy's time. And to me, those are the years when you learn how to say, yes, sir, no, ma'am. how to stand up straight, clean up your room. Do those kinds of things because now you're past the point of being just nurtured. Now you need to learn how to grow and how to be a part of society. And I think that if you're smart like my dad was, when you get to be about age 10 or 11, then you even reach out and let other people even help you parent those children. Because I think my dad understood that it takes a village. And when I hit about 10 or 11, about 4th grade, 5th grade, my dad was more than willing to incorporate other men into my life to help them raise me. And he let them all know that if they needed to, they could discipline me, whip me, and then report back to him so he could discipline me and whip me again. So at that age, I got Boy Scout leaders in my life, okay? I had coaches in my life at that time who all made a difference. Other men who all of a sudden came into my life to give me some balance to play off of what my dad had taught me. I'm really lucky. I come from a town called Leavenworth, Kansas. Anybody ever heard of Leavenworth, Kansas? Yeah. Prison people, y'all know about that. But right next door to Leavenworth, Kansas, right next to our town is Fort Leavenworth. So there's a fort and there's Leavenworth. And where I grew up, we had, well, it was a long time ago, okay? A long time ago. And let me give you some history and some education about black people. For black men, our barber shop is our country club. Okay? The barber shop is a country club. That's where everything happens. And when I was growing up, just like churches, barber shops were segregated. So all I saw were black men at the barber shop. I didn't even see women at the barber shop when I was coming up. Women didn't bring their kids, so daddy did that. Now maybe society has changed a little bit. Now we have more single mothers, maybe that's important. But when I was growing up, you didn't see women in the barber shop, you just saw men. So the men would be there, and the men would be there to teach you. Now I can remember in the beginning, my father would take me to the barber shop, and as a little kid, you know, I'd be there crying and trying to figure out what's going on. And our barber shop was run by a guy named Sergeant Litton. Sergeant Litton was an old Buffalo soldier, and he would grab my head like it was a basketball and cut all around it, and I'd be looking around, and the old men would always be laughing and all that kind of stuff, but my dad would be there, and my dad would tell me that it was okay. And he would challenge me to be a big boy and hang in there, and I found out it was okay. As I grew older, I got a chance to go to the barber shop by myself. Matter of fact, from our house to the barber shop was 2 blocks. 2 more blocks got me to school. So Dad would say on Friday, stop by the barber shop. And Mr. Linton would know what to cut all my hair off, and Dad would come by and pay the next day. Let me just paint a picture for you. Mr. Linton's barber shop was a little small shop, and you would have all kinds of pictures on the wall of how you could get your hair styled and different little hair tonics, that kind of stuff. And then he'd have the Jet magazines and Ebony magazines that all would be there. But the big thing he had was he had these pictures on the wall. And he had all these black men's pictures on the wall. And I didn't know who they were at the time. I just knew that these were guys who happened to come in the shop from time to time, and they would tell me what to do or not to do and give me some advice. But when I got older, I got a chance to find out a little bit more about those men. So let me show you who. These are the guys that I grew up with. These were the men that were my stepfathers. These were the men that made up my village. These were the men who taught me how to be well-groomed, how to stand up straight, how to do the right things. These were those men. Now, you may not all know who they are, but Frank probably knows most of them because Frank knows about that military stuff. But let me give you a little quick education, okay? If you go back in black military history, you'll find out that the first black general was Benjamin Davis. Benjamin Davis Sr. in World War I. World War II, his son took over, and he was the second general. You might know him from Red Tails in the movie, okay? But there wasn't another black general until 1971. That general's name was Roscoe Cartwright from Kansas City, Kansas, right outside my hometown. Went to the same college that I went to. I don't know if he was whispering in my ears at the barbershop or not, but he went to Kansas State Teachers College, which later on was called Emporia State College, where I went to. That guy. The second guy. You may not know him, but his name is Julius Beckton. He was head of FEMA before we knew there was a FEMA. Okay? He was so much into education, he was one of the ones who told me about ROTC scholarships to make sure that I signed up and get all of that. Later on, he became the president of Prairie View College. Okay? How about the next guy, Roscoe Robinson? Okay? Roscoe Robinson was the first black 4-star general. Not very many folks get to be 4-star general. Now, you know how you know about him? Because he was over the 82nd Airborne Command out of North Carolina, Fort Bragg. Didn't know that was a black guy, did you? Yeah, he was a black guy getting those folks to jump out with parachutes and go do some of our great things. That guy right there. The guy on the left, Emmett Page. Emmett Page was over all communications and all information systems during Vietnam War. That guy. The other guy, Harry Brooks. Harry Brooks was the mentor of Colin Powell. And I would go to the barbershop, and I'd sit there with Mr. Lennon cutting my hair. And on one day, the new commandant of Fort Leavenworth, the second in command, showed up. And he asked about all the pictures on the wall. And that man was Colin Powell. So you can see that the village that I grew up in, and these guys were not generals or any of that when I grew up. They were just regular guys who happened to be coming through the barbershop, who knew enough and touched my life and made sure that I was who I turned out to be. Now, any of you who have a military background know then that I must have a great love for country, because these men have a great love for America. A greater love than you can even imagine. A great love for family and a great love for doing what's right. When I knew these men, I was about 10 years old, 10 or 12 years old. That would have been in the 60s. At that time, these men in this country could not vote. You hear me now? These men in this country could not vote. Do the math. The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. I was 12, 13 years old by then. To be those kind of men and to have that kind of commitment, that sense of character, says a whole lot. And I'm so proud to say that these are the men that helped make me. And I tell you that because I want you to know that it doesn't matter where you are or who you are. You can be at the barbershop, you can be at the grade school, you can be anywhere, and you can make a difference in someone's life. You don't have to be famous, you don't have to have a special title above your name. All you have to do is follow that quote that Ernest Holmes said, follow that urge to be needed, to be of substance to someone, to help someone else out. So as a result of the men in my life and those fathers who have helped make me, I've made a bigger commitment to be even a better uncle to my nieces and nephews, to be even a better mentor, to be a better father, to participate in Big Brothers and Sisters, to do those kinds of things. And my challenge to you is, what is it that you can do to offer a youngster discipline, direction, a sense of destiny in their life? What is it that you have to offer? Maybe your talent is being in the theater. Maybe your talent is singing. Maybe you're just good at fixing things. But there's something that all of us have, and we all have something that we can give. We all have something that we can give to youngsters. I want to encourage you to think of those people who gave so much to you. Think of your fathers. I'm not lucky enough to have my father with me today to give one of those ties or any of those gifts to, but I can tell you that I can still today smell the old spice. I can still smell the smell of cigarettes, cigars, tobacco, coffee, whatever it might have been. And I can still feel that rough brush up against my cheek when my father would hold me. And I can still feel those strong, tight black arms of that old man when he would squeeze me, and how he would look me dead in the eye and say, I love you, I am proud of you. Whether I was leaving, going to college, or coming home. I am so blessed because I know that my father loved me. I wish all of you that kind of love. And if you don't get it from your father, then be it for someone else. And what you'll find out is that it'll flip right back around to you. Hey folks, I have enjoyed speaking to you. I would speak to you forever. Somewhere, Dottie's up here doing this. So let me tell you, thank you. Happy Father's Day to you. And we are so glad that you were here.